Welcome back to Slow Living. I'm Esther, and in this video I am going to show you how to take up a pair of jeans. There is nothing more polished than seeing a pair of pants, especially jeans, that have been tailored to the perfect length for you. So in this video I will show you how you can do that properly by yourself with a sewing machine. I'm a big fan of learning how to mend it and care for it really well because of the environmental and social flow-on effects of not buying into fast fashion and really caring for our garments. So check out my channel if you're into that kind of stuff too, or if you want to learn more about garment construction and how you too can care and alter your own clothing. So in this video I will talk you through all of the basics that you will need to know in order to take up a pair of jeans properly, including needles, threads, how to press things to make things easier for you, and essentially trying to obtain the best result possible from an at-home job.
So let's get into it. This is my husband trying on the pair of jeans that he bought from an op shop. He does this very frequently. He loves an op shop, as do I, and we always manage to find lots of pairs of jeans. So I've told him to try them on. That is always the first step to altering anything. So try them on, get a really good feel for what they look like as they are, and then cuff them up like we have done here. And after you've cuffed them, make sure that you stand up straight so that the full length of the pant is sitting where it should be when you are in a neutral standing position, and then you can check that the length is correct that way. Here we can take a look at the original finish of the hems. So these have been done professionally, and you can see that from the distressing and the color that's in there. That row of stitching is approximately 1 centimeter from the bottom of the pants. I'll measure them here for you, but then as you can see on the other side, the actual fold of the hem that's been rolled up is actually closer to 1.5 centimeters. So now we're going to do a little calculation to make sure that we have enough seam allowance to make this seam happen. We need at least 1.5 times 2 because we're going to fold the hem up twice like that and then finish it off properly with our stitch. So just to reiterate, at least 1.5 times 2. Or if you want to be a little bit more conservative, you can do 2 centimeters by 2. Just make sure that you note down whatever seam allowance you choose to do. Next, I'm going to point out something that maybe a lot of beginners might not realize, and that is how extremely thick denim is. And if you're trying to take up denim jeans, there are these seams that look like this, which are actually about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of denim. That's 4 layers, and then if you are hemming 4 layers, that makes it 8 layers or even 12 layers of fabric that you are trying to get through. So I need to reiterate that it is really important that we actually change our needle to a much bigger needle. Most standard machines, I think they would come with like a size 12 to 14 needle, and that's fine for most everyday uses, but when you are sewing with denim and with jeans, you need to make that much bigger. So here I'm actually going to use a size 18 needle. I think you can use an 18 or even a size 20 needle. That's one thing that if you are going to be taking up jeans in future and you'd like to do this as an ongoing thing, it would be a really good idea to invest in a thicker needle. Most machines, you change the needle the same way. There's just a little screw, you use a little screwdriver, unscrew that, you can take the needle out and put the new one in. Because I have an industrial machine, there's a little side bit of the needle where the thread runs down the left side, so I just got to make sure that that goes in the correct way. But for any machine, make sure that the eye of the needle is facing the correct direction. For most domestic machines, the eye of the needle should be facing forward. For industrials, it's on the side. The next thing to consider is thread. You will notice that for a lot of denim work, you can see that the top stitching is actually in a really nice thick top stitching thread, and I think the nature of top stitch thread is just that it's a bit thicker and it might have a bit more sheen to it, but the main thing is that it is thicker, so it actually shows up more because usually top stitching is a nice little detail for garments rather than a normal seam where you don't even see the thread. So if you don't have top stitch thread, I do have a little hack for you. You can actually double up normal thread. So if you have the right color in a normal thread and you don't want to buy top stitch thread specifically for this pair of jeans, then you can actually tie 2 regular threads and pass them through the machine, thread them both through the needle, and maybe do a couple of test runs to check that it's all sewing normally, but it should come up just fine. On the left, you can see that's 1 single strand of normal thread. In the middle, it's doubled over, and on the right is the top stitch thread. And now we're finally ready to start cutting our jeans. Before we cut, we need to measure, and we need to make sure that we include the seam allowance that we calculated earlier. So for me, that was 3 centimeters. So I need to make sure that I measure up from the bottom of where I have cuffed the jeans and add 3 centimeters to that. Once I've finished measuring 3 centimeters all the way around the cuff of my jeans, then I can cut. Make sure that you measure twice because you can only cut once. Once you've cut off one side, do the same for the other side. I like to keep my scraps because I use them to mend my jeans later on. I actually made a tutorial on how you can properly mend rips in jeans, so I'll link that above here. Now that we've cut our jeans, it's time to fold things into place so that we can stitch it down more easily. Now, because we're going to fold it over twice, it's very important, seeing how thick this denim is, that we fold it over once first and then we press that down. And once we've folded it once and pressed everything nice and flat, then it will make it a lot easier to fold it a second time and then press that down flat. And because denim is so bulky, I find it really helpful to mark my seam allowance. So as I said before, my seam allowance is 3 centimeters. And that means that each fold, I have allowed myself 1.5 centimeters. So once I've had a bit of a play, and I think that I can achieve that 1.5 centimeters within each fold, then I can start to pin things in place. Now we're gonna have a look at this open seam here. As you can see, both of the little bits of seam allowance are pressed to either side. And I want to keep that nice and flat. I don't want it to go to either side. I want it to keep it flat and then pin that down in place. At this point, it's also a good idea to turn the jeans inside out because that's how we're going to sew them. So before I finished pinning everything in place, I turned them inside out and then popped them on the iron. Here I will keep measuring and keep pinning until I'm really happy with that 1.5 centimeters and that first fold. Then I will give it a really nice press so that it looks like this. And then we can move on to folding it a second time and pressing that down in place in a very similar fashion to how we did it the first time. A neat little tip for you is that this is the proper way to put pins in garments. And the reason for that is so that when you're sewing through a sewing machine, it makes the pin really accessible with your right hand and you can just simply pull it out and then continue sewing. The stitch length for top stitch is generally a bit longer than a regular stitch, so I would recommend going approximately 3 stitches per centimeter. Now, after all that technical stuff, we are finally ready to start stitching. If you remember, before we measured, the stitching finished approximately 1 centimeter up from the bottom of the hem. So if you need to, put a little marking next to your sewing machine so that you can get a really nice straight edge. As with all sewing, make sure that you do a little back tack whenever you start and finish. That just means that you do a few stitches backwards before coming forwards again, and that means that your stitching won't come undone. It is very, very important to really slow down when you get to those thick parts of the seams. So here you can see this is in real time. I'm doing one little stitch at a time, and that really allows the needle to penetrate through all those layers of fabric. Like I said before, there are about 12 layers of fabric in there, and if you simply press down hard on your sewing machine and try and zoom through it, I can almost guarantee that you are going to break your needle or you're going to jam your machine. So make sure that you go nice and slow over those parts, whereas the other parts you can sew a lot more freely and all the way around until you are back to where you started. Make sure you trim off all your threads, and then your hem should be looking like this. It's very nice and neat. I'm pretty pleased with how this turned out, and then you just have to do the other side. As with all sewing projects, once you have sewn a seam, you should give it a really nice press, and if you have a steam function on your iron, use that and you'll get a really nice flat seam. Once you turn your jeans out the right way, they should be all finished.
So there you go. I hope that this video was helpful for you and that you now feel either equipped to take this project on yourself and with all of your jeans or pants that have a similar type of hem, or that you have a newfound appreciation for the people that work in tailoring shops and alteration shops, and you now know what exactly you are paying for every time you pay that little bit extra to have your jeans or pants tailored to fit you beautifully. In my opinion, it is a worthy investment. My perspective with clothing and sustainability in particular is the better the understanding we have of the process that goes on behind the scenes, the better appreciation we have for the clothing that we do have, and the more that we invest in that, the more likely we are going to hold on to beautiful garments that will serve us for many years to come, instead of choosing to buy cheap, fast fashion that may cost people their lives and even the environment. Taking up your jeans is a really nice way to sort of polish off a look, especially if you have managed to thrift a pair of jeans, which my husband and I really enjoy doing. I would say that more than half of the jeans in our wardrobe, which just quietly is a lot of pairs of jeans, are from thrift stores. And so thrifting is obviously a great way to get really quality denim at an affordable price. And so if maybe the more expensive denim brands are not accessible to you, then I would highly encourage you to go to a thrift store and see what you can find. Hopefully this video was helpful for you. If you have any suggestions for other things that I might be able to help you mend or care for in terms of clothing, feel free to leave a comment and you'll give me some great ideas for what I could do next. I really enjoy making these videos, so give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you again soon. Bye! My perspective around clothing, and especially to do with sustainability, is that the more we can learn about the environmental and I do other videos